Welcome to this week's episode of Cables, Coffee, and Curveballs with your hosts, the BaldAVGuys.
Hey, listeners. Welcome back to yet another episode of Cables, Coffee, and Curveballs. We are now season 2, episode 5. That's right, folks. Today, we have a very special episode, but before I get started, Rich had something come up last second. He's not going to be able to join us, so it's going to be me and Gopesh on this side of the glass trying to, keep up and do all the things that Rich Miller does. So go ahead, Gopesh, do you?
Yeah, no, I'm excited to. I have some pretty big shoes to fill. I'm excited to just, fill in Rich's spot. And, I've been behind the scenes working for you guys, and now to actually be on camera again feels pretty nice. Yeah, get the spotlight on me.
Pressure makes diamonds. Pressure makes diamond, crumbles dust. Let's see what you do, Gopesh.
I'm feeling good about it. Feeling good. Turn it over to you, George.
Thank you, Gopesh. Last week we had a crazy week. Feels like a blur now, but we had our PACE AV Career Summit 2023. 189 folks in attendance. Wonderful panels. It was such a great show. There was so much to take away. We're really, really excited. Then we finished the week off with Tim Albright in the city with AV Nation podcast with Gina Sanzavero and George Tucker, Rich and myself. So it's been a crazy week. But today we are back at it recording, and we have a very special guest with us today, Ernie Beck. Ernie, if you've listened to the show, I don't introduce our guest because I tend to butcher everything. So I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. All right. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Ernie Beck. George, thanks for having me on. And Gopesh, I think it's fair to say that I might not be the only nervous person on the call here today. So we'll see who comes out on top here. But happy that you're on as well for Rich. And unfortunately, hopefully Rich gets his car situation sorted out. But so I'm Ernie Beck. I'm a I guess about a 15-year veteran in the AV industry, and I currently work for NV5, or a large global engineering and consulting company, and I work in the building technologies practice, and so we do everything from audiovisual, IT, security, acoustics, and then I'm also helping to sort of lead and push efforts for our intelligent building and smart campus design services, which sort of leverages all different disciplines within NV5. So, without going into everything, because it's a lot, sort of blurring the lines between, AV, IT, lighting, sustainability, energy, analytics, data, all that stuff. So, and AI, which is something we're finding more and more prevalent, and more of our clients are asking for it. So I think this is a good conversation to have. So yes, I have watched your show, and I hope I didn't butcher my intro.
No, not at all.
It was perfect. It was perfect.
Good. All right. And looking at the guests you've had on in the past, I'd say I got big shoes to fill myself. So very, very happy to be here.
We're very glad that you could join us, and it sounds like NV5 definitely keeps you busy. Is it they're just not hiring enough people and just saying, "Hey, Ernie, take this on"? Or I'm kidding.
Well, all joking aside, and I think you did a great job last week. I sort of saw the social media feeds about what you all were doing with helping to promote the industry on a larger scale. And I mean, the challenge is we just don't have enough. We don't have enough of a workforce pipeline. Something I've been, it's been sort of a personal crusade of mine for many years. I'm also, in addition to NV5, I'm also sort of on the tech planning board for one of the few AV training trade specific programs, schools on the East Coast. It's called the Sheffield Institute. That's where I studied. I got my audio engineering background, but they are really hyper focused on the AV tech trade workforce development slant. And so I love what you're doing over there, George. I think that's really wonderful. And hopefully it's starting to bear fruit, and we're starting to see more smarter guys than us, like Gopesh, in the industry.
I really hope so, because I I stumbled into this industry as most of us have. So, let's touch on that, Ernie. Like, what is your story with the AV industry? You said you have a little background with Sheffield Institute, and my story, I've said it so many times, is I stumbled in. I started as a student worker, and here I am, 20 plus years later. What's your story? What's Ernie Beck's audiovisual story?
Yeah, and without talking, I don't want to make it too much about me, but my background, I'm one of the few people that did study AV in school. So again, at Sheffield, they had a very small, they have a program for video editing and video creation, which is, was picking out people who are doing or producing students who were able to, shoot videos and create content. They had an audio program, or they have an audio program, which is teaching students how to record, mix, and master live sound. And those classes were full. The one class that wasn't very full was this little class called TechWorks. And TechWorks was where they had oscilloscopes and soldering irons and circuit boards and cables and equipment racks. And I'm going, okay, this is interesting.
What's going on there?
Yeah, what's going on there? That's interesting. And to come to find out that everyone who goes through that program gets a job. And, okay, that's interesting. And so I went through the program originally for audio, thinking I was going to turn my passion for music. So what you don't see on my wall is a bunch of guitars, and I've got some amps over here, but try to turn my passion for music into something. And I also love technology. And so, I kind of got my foot in the door with audio, and then saw that there's a tech slant to this. And so I took that course, that trade program, and started as a technician. And so it was, I wouldn't say I fell into it. There was some intention behind it, but I will tell you that I had no idea at the size and scale and the opportunities the industry would bring me when I got into it. I just thought, okay, I can't teach guitar forever. I'd like to have a paid sick day. I'd like to put money in a 401k eventually. And I can't do that working freelance teaching music. So I got to start as a technician. And after a few months in the field, they realized I was not a good technician. Lost probably a couple expensive parts in the field. But
that's how you learn.
That's how you learn, right? But I did, sort of cut my teeth pulling cables and climbing up scaffolding and getting in the cherry picker and being super nervous and so that. But I realized soon that I loved systems design, and I had a customer service background, from just kind of having jobs as a teenager, young adult. So balancing my customer service, kind of natural skills with system design, which is kind of like building a big puzzle. Like if someone just dumped a 1,000-piece puzzle on the table, that's what a system design was to me. And it always surprised me that at the end of the day, I was able to take that puzzle and build it and have something that was functional. And then to see how those puzzles actually brought joy and meaning to certain clients, and how if it's, it solved a problem for them. And
that's a fantastic analogy. I just want to say that it's putting pieces of a puzzle together. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's top-notch analogy. And Ernie, we've worked on a couple of projects together recently. NV5 and Pace, my 9-to-5 hat. I'm truly impressed how you guys approach the design process and understand, the entire process of, it's easy for me as the client to say, hey, I want XYZ, right? Yep. I want NVX, I want wireless power, I want all this stuff. And then Ernie will be like, you know what, we got you NVX. How about we tone down that wireless power portion of your request?
Well, at the end of the day, we're trying to make you happy. But one of the sort of the art forms of AV consulting, which I spent the better part of 10 years in integration, and I thought it was a really great spot for me to learn. But what you learn in the consulting side is that there are so many factors at play, so many stakeholders, right. And if you just kind of boil it down to its simplest form, we are trying to thread that needle of what delivers, solutions that meets the most common denominator for most of the people using the space. What threads the needle with what George and his standards that he's developed, right? These are meticulous standards that they're not just, you don't just pull them out of thin air. They come from somewhere, right?
With a little hint of crazy, but
a little hint of crazy. There's a method to the madness. And so, we throw that, but then we have, okay, well, what is the what's in the walls of the existing building, right? Can we even get into this because of asbestos? What is the project budget dictate for us? What does the timeline dictate for us? There's all these other factors, and so it's a delicate dance. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we need to work on it, but long story short, that's my story in the industry, and I would say that AV has been sort of a gateway drug for me, in that at some point I realized that AV is one piece of kind of a larger infrastructure around user experiences within the building. And that's where I got more into, I focus a lot more now into broader topics like, smart buildings and how they enhance and deliver user experiences, sustainability, health and wellness, energy conservation, operational efficiency, all those things. So
that's a great story, because it's been a little different, because you have a little bit of background with the engineering and the AV. It's been a little different than almost all of our other guests who fell into the industry like me. So, but I want to harp on that. It's a beautiful industry. It's a wonderful industry. We go about the same circles, and we know the AV family is a tight knit group, and it's really time to grow that group. But this show, I want to talk about the elephant in the AV industry, elephant in any industry right now, right? And you touched on it: smart buildings, smart rooms, AI, right? That's all the rage. My first question to you, flat out: you think it's a fad, like a 3D TV, or you think it's real, it's here, it's going to be adopted?
Well, I will never call 3D TV a fad, because I have a Panasonic 3D TV that I bought in 2014, and it was one of my first big purchases as an adult. 2013, first big purchases when I bought my house with my wife, and the 3D glasses, have no idea where they are. And
I was going to say, how many glasses have you purchased over the years?
Yeah, you can't buy enough, because they never work. So, so to that end though, no, AI is absolutely not a flash in the pan. It is not a fad. It is evolving faster than I think really understands. Well, not anybody, but I would say the vast majority of people understand really truly how powerful it is and how exponential it grows. It's not on a linear growth curve. It's on a very much exponential growth curve. So if we don't, I think a lot of the things we're going to probably talk about today are sort of looking into our crystal ball about where AI's fit is within AV and smart spaces and smart buildings. And so while some things may not be true today, it's only a matter of time until they are 100% application based and something we see on a regular basis.
Yeah. When we talk about AI in IT and networking, we think about network optimization, we think about bandwidth and all this kind of stuff, right? So when it comes to AV, and this, I'm a big I'm big on the AV over IP situation right now.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And AV over IP, the bandwidth needs, the network needs are so demanding. It's so overpowering, really. Is there a way we could leverage? They both probably eventually, if not already, go hand in hand. But can we somehow, like for instance, so if I go to my network guy and say, listen, I want to do 4K video. I was about to go full technical, say 4K 6444.
Yeah.
I want to send 10 feeds of 4K video simultaneously. I want to stream commencement on every single digital signage TV while there are 3 exams going on over here that use the Wi-Fi. I'm pretty sure the entire networking department is going to have a serious fit, right? So
as they should.
What can we use AI to mitigate those like bandwidth latency issues, or somehow figure out how that bandwidth is allocated?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. You would absolutely have a better sense of how it would impact your specific environment, and every client we talk to has somewhat different levels of different thresholds for the amount of AV traffic they'll allow in their environment, and what networks they touch, and what can go on, what can't go on, and what the security measures are and access. But I think it starts. I think the opportunity starts with something like using AI for automated network configuration. So so when we put a device on the network, as in years past, it's very much, okay, well, I've got to now configure my network for the device, or I've got to configure the device for the network. And so I think what we would really like to see is sort of network topologies be able to automatically, using sort of, AI driven network algorithms to optimize. So if I put something on the network, it's gonna basically optimize whatever ports those are on. It's gonna set things like your quality of service. So sort of automated quality of service driven things. So you tell, sort of like training a chat GPT bot, you say, okay, these are the things that I want to prioritize, or we need to prioritize in our QoS. And from there, we're going to look at traffic, and we're going to automatically optimize those routes. And we're going to look at demand. We're going to almost like energy demand. We're going to look at, active network demand. And then using, the nice thing about AI is that it's, you sort of build in the machine learning element, where it's using historical data on network trend and network usage throughout maybe a 6-month time frame. And then it's automatically scaling things up and down. So I take that same device, instead of me spending all this time or spending all this money on an integrator to configure it for me, it's basically plug and play to the network. The network is smart enough to start to do those automatic configurations, and then it knows, okay, I might be ingesting and putting, trying to put 4K 60 on the network, but because I'm at peak time right now, I only have so much QoS reserved for these particular ports. It could automatically, sort of throttle that as needed. So maybe it's a matter of taking it from 4K 60 444 color space to a 422 color space, or 420 color space, or maybe even 1080p.
I was going to say, yeah, drop it down to 1080p because.
Right. So, I mean, that would be, that would be sort of like where I see it starting is looking at, traffic flow patterns, looking at sort of quality of service, and then using sort of predictive maintenance and machine learning algorithms to say, okay, well, based on historical trends, here's how we can expect, to sort of partition our network correctly, or allocate bandwidth correctly in our space.
You touched on predictive
Maintenance.
Maintenance. Sorry,
Yeah.
it was all of a sudden I forgot the word maintenance. So this happens to me a lot. So I'm curious. Now you said peak time, this throttle the bandwidth and all this kind of stuff. Let's touch on preventative maintenance for real quick. If I'm in a classroom, we have a classroom technology cycle of 4 to 5 years. Obviously, it goes from room to room, because if you have a laser projector, there's really no reason to change it out every 4 to 5 years. You let that go a little longer, and then as technology trends change. But when I'm looking at my podium, my rack, my central system, my processing system,
yeah.
Is there things I can do using AI as a preventative maintenance to increase the longevity? And does that give me more time on my purchase, on my tech, as opposed to having a 4 to 5 year? Is it realistic to say, all right, now you're looking at a replacement cycle of a 5 to 6 years, or is it just in the moment break fix kind of a preventative maintenance type thing?
No, that's a really good question, and I think it's twofold. I think one of the nice things about, or one of the powerful things rather, about AI is its ability to trend large data sets. And all of your devices are putting out some type of data, right? And so assuming that there is sort of a key performance indicator, a KPI, that is supposed to be met by the system on a daily basis, AI should be able to be trained, and this is used in much more complex mission critical systems, like large HVAC systems and other energy management systems now. So there's no reason it can't be done.
Right.
And those systems have tens of thousands of data points as opposed to hundreds of data points. So when you can trend large sets of data, you can do things like anomaly detection, right? Where this is your KPI. And this is my interpretation of a graph. Right?
It made complete sense to me. I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Think of it as EKG, right? So your EKG is healthy, right?
Right.
But the moment that a particular device is experiencing an anomaly, you might never know it. You might never see it. You might not even perceive it. But the fact that a fan is starting to fail is causing a temperature increase. Right. And so now, instead of the EKG looking healthy, the EKG is dipping down and coming back up. It's dipping down and it's coming back up. And that anomaly can then trigger an alert. And that alert can then be used to say, okay, what's going on with this? Is this a real problem? Or is this an anomaly that needs, identified, and we need some sort of, we need to be proactive about fixing it? Or is this just normal? Sometimes, we know about this issue. And I think that's where we have to sort of look realistically at this and say, AI is not yet going to solve those issues. And we hear about self-optimizing networks, and like you hear some marketing material on like self-healing networks, things like that. And at the end of the day, the data is only as good as the actions taken on that data.
Right.
So it might be telling you, hey, George, your NVX, or we'll always say AVX, your AV over IP wall plates.
Right.
And I'm not saying anyone in particular has this issue. This is just a general disclaimer.
Blanket statement.
Blanket statement, right? We'll come back to that later. But wall plates, my AV over IP wall plates, all of them are trending hot. And I know that because I'm getting reports on that from my AI network optimization dashboard. And so it's your job to say, okay, well, here's the data. What am I going to do with this? Am I going to go in and rip all those out and change them out so that I don't have a failure? Or do I not have the budget to do that right now? And I just have to say, okay, I bought these 3 years ago. If I can get another year out of them, not great, but hey, it's better than nothing.
Right.
So really AI is it's just like, AI is a tool. It's another tool. It's a very powerful tool.
Right. Analytical tool.
It's an analytical tool, but AI is not going to dispatch somebody yet.
Right. Yeah.
With a tool belt or a cable tester or an RMA form, it's not going to do that yet. You still have to take action on that data. I think the answer is it's really kind of like up to the organization. So it can be used as a tool to augment your staff and not replace your staff. But then also, how are you going to act on the things that it's telling you?
Until the matrix happens and those little gizmos come out of your network, those little spider robot looking things go in and they start fixing stuff, and then you're good to go. Then all of a sudden we don't need me anymore.
We can only hope. Right, exactly. Until you have like the Boston Dynamics robots come in You're like, oh, that's a robotic dog. And
There must be something wrong.
and he just plugs in an HDMI cable back to the wall. Like, did I really need to pay for that? Yeah. But the whole point of predictive maintenance is that it tries to analyze and get ahead of those issues ahead of time. Yeah. So it's going, hey, George Gopesh, every time we get to 3 o'clock on a Tuesday or a Wednesday in between September and December, your quality of service, cache is maxed out, or we don't have any, we're now throttling everything, or we're having to truncate some services. What do you want to do about that? Right. And so I think that's the predictive element of it is really fascinating, because it's sort of looking at, hey, this is what could come. And if you remember when you and I probably first got into the industry, problems happen, but if we don't catch them, they fester. And when they fester, they just continually turn into.
It costs a lot more money later. Let's come off the network real quick and let's go into a space. Let's go into a classroom, a conference room, whatever it is, right?
Sure.
I think I saw Chris Netto and Jen. They had the Midwich session. I think I saw QSYS self-framing cameras.
Okay.
And Avixa had a webinar this afternoon that Yealink was talking about their AI cameras, and everyone we're a copycat industry when it comes down to certain things. Well, a lot of things, and everyone is coming out with like a AI based camera now, right? So in over at Infocom last year, I saw Hudley had the L1s, the AI cameras. We were blown away by it. Like, oh my God, that looks amazing.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah, it's a pretty impressive product.
Now it seems like everyone's doing it. And, my question is, from an education perspective, from a higher ed perspective, does that really enhance the teaching and learning process? I know, the post-pandemic has made us hyper aware of web conferencing and all these kind of things. Is it critical to enhance the teaching learning process? What are the benefits, so to speak, of that kind of technology in the classroom? Because a lot of times, I guess, get asked this question. This. I get, it's like, do we really need to put all that in the room? Unfortunately, my answer is starting to become, well, that's all that's available right now. So, what is your take on that?
Well, I think had the pandemic not happened, a lot of things would be different.
Right.
But I think the pandemic threw gasoline on a slow burning fire for all businesses, and all universities, which was we need to address hybrid learning. And it's funny, is hybrid is this term that's like ubiquitous now, and it's like for us, it's like this is just,
we've been doing it forever.
Yeah, we never called it hybrid. We called it distance learning, right? Distance learning. We called it video conferencing. We called it whatever. Hybrid, but I get it. Whatever gets people into it, that's fine by me.
Hybrid, high flex. Well, there's so many names to it.
Yeah. So okay. I'm trying to think of the best way to answer your question. I think it depends on who you ask. I think in some cases, professionals like yourself, you just want to get high quality video and audio that's consistent and as low maintenance as possible, and that delivers a great product that students care about and can use and consume. And so while that may sound like a low bar, it's actually a really hard bar to hit sometimes.
Right.
So, but the people who are also in charge of kind of thinking about broader issues, I'm not saying you're not in charge of that. I just know that you're in the trenches a lot of times, trying to make a lot of
taking grenades.
Yeah, that's a super important job. But there are also people who sort of, we work with a lot of architects, and architects are very much focused on, the triple bottom line, right? Which is, people, profit, planet, right? Or,
Right.
Social, economic, and environmental, right? Whatever those three pillars of sort of how do we check all those off. And so when you look at like sort of the people, social element of things, the pandemic really sort of furthered this widening gap in digital equity. And down here I'm outside of Baltimore, and in Baltimore City, when the pandemic hit, there was, I think, an Able Foundation study said that there was something like close to 75,000 households that had one or fewer internet connected devices. Now that could just be a cell phone. So imagine, pandemic hits, schools close, no one can go in person. And so now everyone's learning on, a phone, a single laptop, really huge problem. And so when you sort of fast forward to where you are and coming up in 2024, this idea of meeting equity, where some people are still remote, whether or not you agree with remote, hybrid, whatever, people are going to be remote. It's just what it is. So I think addressing that and having things like, automatic speaker recognition, being able to frame an individual or being able to reframe the group, one, it sort of helps obviously there's just the inherent benefit of it. It's less touches on we used to set up presets on the touch panel and they were unlabeled and people had no idea. But for the guys, like, oh yeah, just hit preset 2 and that will zoom into the chair in the left corner of the room. It's like I had no idea it did that.
Right. Until someone accidentally hit the camera and then it was zooming somewhere else.
Right. And not to mention the fact that the majority of people really don't like using, the majority of non-AV people really don't like using the touch panel. They just want the system to turn on. They're not camera producers. They're not shot producers. They just want to turn it on. So first, I think something like speaker tracking, like facial recognition for speaker tracking starts to break down a barrier to entry for using the AV. But then for people who are on the far end, George is talking, the camera pans to him. I can see what he's saying. I can see his facial expressions and things like that.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. So, not to be long-winded here, but I think that there is absolutely, it's like you said, once one company does it and figures it out, another company does it and figures it out, and then it just becomes ubiquitous.
Right.
But I think if we kind of dive into that idea of meeting equity, I think this is where AI, camera algorithms and software and meeting equity can really kind of take off. And so some of the ideas that I'm seeing kind of be talked about more and played around, there's some NDA circles that us consultants have that we're with manufacturers, we can't go full kimono on this, but I mean, things like ASL recognition, right? So, we have things like, you could do transcription with cameras and translation, but right now, no one has really yet solved how can we use those same algorithms to take and interpret American Sign Language. Which I think is great. When you couple that with real-time transcription and translation, you have, you really have kind of an opportunity to cater it to people who have special needs and don't have, 20/20 vision or,
Yeah, that's really going to change the accessibility game when that happens. I know I've heard people talk about it. I don't know what the status of that, so to speak, is right now, but I've heard of it in the circles, and man, would that be a game changer?
It would. And I think what it's going to do is I think it's going to have, I remember back in 2010 when the Obama administration passed new legislation for the Americans with Disabilities Act, basically huge sweeping update to the Americans with Disabilities Act program. One of the things that was required at all federal facilities was any federal facility that had a speech reinforcement or sound reinforcement system required assistive listening. Not only assistive listening system, but then signage outside the room that comes in those kits that says this is equipped with assistive listening.
Right.
And at the time, the integrator I worked for had a big contract with the National Park Service, and guess what? We went all over the country putting in assisted listening systems. At the time though, we also found that all those systems were held together with bubble gum and chewing,
Right.
Scotch tape. And so
don't give away all our secrets, Ernie.
Yeah, right.
Gaff tape and chewing gum.
Right. And so we did a lot of things. But what I'm getting at is that I wouldn't be surprised if that was 13 years. Geez, 13 years ago. Yeah, anywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw future legislation mandating that systems that are used. You can't mandate it for private institutions, but at the federal level, that they have the ability to say, hey, you're putting in this AV system, you've got to make accommodations for people who are hard of hearing, hard of sight, that aren't able to make it into the office because of a health condition.
Right.
And so I go back to another sort of going back to like my grassroots here. I remember I did a federal project again 13 plus years ago, and the mandate was, well, one of their employees was blind, and so they said, we got to make these systems accommodated. We have to accommodate the blind.
Right.
And so we basically created Polycom video conference systems with voice recognition. So we used what they used in robotics at the time, right? So voice recognition training modules, you train it to say something and it fires a contact closure. And then we even custom brailled Extron button panels so that on, off, volume up, volume down, source select, things like that. So the beauty is, I think, when you talk about meeting equity and AI, is that it can solve a lot of those challenges without requiring these super bespoke, extremely expensive systems that have big learning curves. I think it creates a better experience. So ultimately, I don't think it's buzz. I think it's real, and I think there's actually some decent impact, society.
Yeah. Without going off into too much of a tangent, it's funny because when you told me your story, I just remember just last week, George Red from CTI told us a story about when they, this is some time back, obviously, and for perspective, by the way, 2010, 13 years ago, I still had hair. So just putting that out there. Red had mentioned that he did a project where he had installed listening devices.
Yep.
And just seeing the faces of the folks, once you could just see it, it's like fulfilling. It's like really a warm feeling. And we have so many stories in the AV industry. So our industry is a beautiful industry that can really help assist, and, we don't care for the spotlight, the limelight, any of that. So it's without going off too far on the soapbox moment, I think it's a beautiful, beautiful industry.
Yeah, I think so. So many avenues I can go down here, George, but one of the things I try and talk about when I'm meeting, so the smart building world has been predominantly dominated by the major critical systems in the building. So it's predominantly been an HVAC centric, MEP centric industry.
Right.
And that's important because those systems are big energy users. And how many times have you gone into a room and you're like, this room is freaking freezing, so you turn it up a bit.
My office this morning. Right.
And so there, the number of hot cold calls is just it's the number one service ticket in most buildings. When we have a projector that doesn't work, you have to reschedule a class, or you have to do something else. When you have a air handler that is faulty and not running at its optimal performance, it costs a lot of energy.
A lot of money. Right.
But that said, one of the things I'm trying to do is evangelize AV as, okay, you're only thinking about, you're thinking about one element of a smart building. I'm thinking about the fact that AV to me is it's the eyes and ears and mouth. It's the sensory organs of the building itself. It's the way that humans both communicate and interact with the building and the building systems and the media and the if you think of the cloud as the brain, your projector is displays, your speakers, your microphones, those are the eyes and ears, nose, mouth of the actual building itself. Yeah. And so the more intelligent we are at the edge, the more intelligent we are in the cloud, and the better those outcomes are for people who are in the room.
Yeah, and this is amazing because AV has been doing this. We've been doing this for so long with occupancy sensors, and you can see I'm getting excited. I'm about to go off on a major tangent, so I want to stop myself. But it's like,
let's go, George, dive in.
we do sensors, and we can do HVAC, and we can do lights, and we can do projectors and room schedulers. We could go nuts with all of this, and really, for us, it's really the long-term picture, the big picture, as opposed to, yes, the right now may cost X amount of dollars, but the long game, you save so much, you get so much done, you save energy. It's mind-blowing what we have been able to do even before this AI boom right now. And folks, I want you guys to know there is a wonderful, wonderful article that Ernie has written on launch.com on smart cities. Gopesh, I'm sure you can scroll that some way, somehow in this.
No, definitely, yeah.
When we publish it, but it's definitely worth reading. I read it before. It's amazing. Ernie, I feel like we can do a whole nother show on this, and maybe we will.
There's a lot to talk about here, and that we haven't even gotten into some of the, I think some of these, again, kind of looking into our crystal ball here, right? I don't think this is woo-woo stuff. I think this is like real deal stuff. So like, think about what else can, we had shared a link back and forth on AI camera technology before, just to sort of get the creative juices flowing.
Right.
And I think when you look at things like, let's go back to meeting equity and talk about, like agenda management. Okay. What does that mean? Much like this call where I'm dominating most of the discussion. Okay. Could AI say,
for the better, by the way, for the better. You don't want to hear me.
Well, but I mean, could AI be used to say, give the teacher a personalized alert that says, we've noticed that Ernie has been talking significantly more than Gopesh. Please call on Gopesh next, and puts him up in the queue, right? So that is just using the same algorithm that we're using for facial recognition that says the camera has spotlighted on me, but it's also recognized that there's other people in the room, and it's comparing those values. Okay. Spotlight time versus unspotlight time. And then saying, okay, well, what does that equal? That equals someone is not talking. So maybe there's a reason, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to just mute me and go to Gopesh, but maybe it gives the teacher the opportunity to
some more information.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Think about it like this. What if a teacher had a dashboard, live analytics in their call that said, I'm sure we can all identify with this. We've all been on a call where if you had every person's name and the number of times they've monopolized, then it might, if everyone had that, think about it, if everyone saw that, someone like myself might say, I'm really talking a lot right now. Shouldn't have given me my afternoon coffee, or, I've been talking 75% of this call. I'm going to let Gopesh speak now. Right. So I think those are some really cool kind of like nuanced opportunities where I think there's some really interesting.
Gopesh will tell you that would not bother me from speaking continuously, but let's switch lanes. I think we definitely will need to get you on a second episode to continue this conversation, but let's switch gears for a little bit and let's do something that Rich likes to call streaming season. I will do what he does. I don't know why, but I'm going to do it because he does it.
This is a yeah. Okay.
We call it streaming season, SZN, like the kids call it, with the slang and all that kind of stuff. We have a bet going. There's a list of top 20 slangs for 2023, and Rich has to incorporate all 20 before this year ends. So he's missed his opportunity today. So he's got very few episodes left to year out on his 20 slangs. So streaming season. Basically, what are you watching these days, Ernie? Do you have anything cool you're watching that our listeners can catch on, because it's holidays and we're running out of shows?
I know, right? And it's the thing is, we have so many shows and not enough time to watch them all. If I'm hanging out with my wife, she loves anything true crime. Honestly, to the point where I can't even name what true crimes we're watching right now. We're watching something about some kidnappings on Blood Mountain, which was, I'm like, another true crime. And then, of course, 5 minutes later, I'm like, do you think he did it? I myself have been, I've actually tried to get back into more reading as of late. So what's coming up off the top of my head is trying to read Killers of the Flower Moon, which is that new Scorsese film that came out. I bought the book a year ago. It sat and collected dust on my shelf, and I'm like, I've got to read this because I want to watch that movie.
I really want to watch that movie.
Yeah, and the book so far has been an absolute page turner. David Grant is he's a great author. He wrote The Lost City of Z, which is about Percy Fawcett, who was looking for El Dorado in the Amazon. Incredible story.
Lately, I just started watching the show called Obliterated on Netflix.
Okay.
And after watching that show and after listening to you, I think there is value in picking up a book, because that show is so bad. But it's one of those shows that are so bad that you can't help but keep watching the train wreck, thinking like, how bad is this going to keep getting? Like, is there a possibility they're going to dig themselves out of the hole, or is this hole going to get deeper? I want to know either ways.
Yeah, and you just jogged my memory because because streaming has now gone back to this model of trickling out, as opposed, like, we societally went through like a binge period, and then we're like, I waited a year for this and it's over in a day. What? So, so I've been really I really love all the Fargo series. If you haven't watched them, they're hilarious and very dark. And it's funny every time we get done watching an episode of Fargo, my wife and I talk like we're from Minnesota for like the next day and a half. So she's like, why are you talking like that? I'm forever British Bake Off fan. I don't know if you guys watch that, but I just love I love all things British for some reason, and I love to cook and I love to bake, and that's kind of how I de-stress, and that's what I do on Sundays. So I watch that because it is like catnip for some reason. So
next time we're on a call together, Ernie, I'm going to try to break out the British accent for you. We'll see what happens.
I won't be doing that, but
real quick, I know you're from Baltimore, so I'm assuming you're a big Baltimore Raven fan. It's a good time to be a Raven fan.
Go Ravens.
Any Super Bowl predictions for the show?
Well, I was just, seeing what 49ers did with the Eagles. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we have another Super Bowl, Ravens versus San Francisco. We beat them once, we'll beat them again. And they can't turn the lights off and try and ice us like they did last year. So,
well, if you believe in the NFL scripts, this year's colors are purple and red, so it's supposed to be Ravens and San Francisco. That's been the trend.
I dabble into some conspiracy theories. Real here.
When you're a Giant and a Met fan, that's about all you have left is conspiracy. So
Sorry, it's not a Mets fan.
So the last part of the show is we attempt a dad joke or a ball joke. So Ernie, if you have one, feel free to jump in.
Yeah. So I was talking to my kids the other day, and I was telling them, I'm a musician, and I said, guys, I was thinking about getting back into playing music again with a band. So I actually talked to some friends, and we had a band. We created a new band we called Blanket. And my son says, okay, what kind of music do you guys play? And I said, we're a cover band.
Get it? That's a moment. That's going to be, Go Pesh could take care of that. Well done. And now I can connect the dots. You said Blanket, more to come on that earlier in the show.
There you go.
Well done, sir.
You got it. Yep. All right.
You came prepared.
All that out.
No, that's a good one. That stays. I'll tell you what. You did a dad joke, so I'll do a ball joke.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah.
What do you call a barber who only works on bald people? What do you call a barber who only works on bald people?
Oh boy.
I don't know.
No idea.
An air stylist.
Wow.
They're supposed to be bad. They're meant to be bad. But,
Well, falling over on that one too. Like it's the whole thing, the whole drum kit falls apart on the rim shot.
yeah, the problem is they're only X amount of ball jokes, so it's really hard to. But anyways, they're supposed to be bad, so it works.
I follow a dad because I'm a dad. I follow a dad jokes Instagram account, and so every day I get like a new one. I'm like, that was good.
Yeah, I think we probably follow the same one because it's the daily jokes that come up. So that's a part of being part of the job description for dads. Signing up for that Instagram channel. Ernie, thank you so much for joining us, and I really think we need a second episode at some point to continue this conversation. What a great conversation!
I would love to do it, George. This went by way faster than any other podcast I've done. So thank you so much, GoPesh. Thank you for letting me speak the whole time. And I would be honored to come back anytime, George. Thank you so much.
Let me tell you, I found out GoPesh can talk, and man, can he talk. He really shocked me on the student panel last week. But
all right,
I'll digress before I keep going off on that. Thank you again. And folks, remember, be kind.
Stay steady.
Help someone.
Checking on an old friend.
And have a good cup of Joe for us.
Take care.
Thanks for watching, everyone. And until next time, this has been a BaldAV Guys production. Take care.